But it's not about that. It's our two basic goals. A closer understanding, a better relationship with God and myself, and tools for life mastery. Anybody who took up the challenge last week, who had an experience like this, or this, or that, or this, or that.
Sometimes it comes to you indirectly, but ends up back in the same place. Mike, who's not with us, he's a truck driver, found $100.
Right on.
All right. Something like $1.25 is what I first, because that's all the money I had.
Well, somebody else feel like sharing? Okay.
Our middle son and his wife and family have been having a rough time over the last several years, and she hasn't been working. And since we've been coming out here, we've been doing a lot of treatment work, and which this last weekend she comes over with an application. She says, I start work next week. This last week she did it. Next week at the Assisted Living Center on Merritt Island, and they expect that I can promote from housework into cooking area inside within, say, a few weeks, because she's had experience before in that area, which would seem kind of not so much, but when you figure she hadn't had a job in
that's
months, and her pretty good-looking youngster, she's 12, she just was hired out of the blue by a friend who works at a station. How would you like to stand out of near the curb with the signs that come in, pizza $6, you know, and we're a funny little outfit. So she's getting $20 for a 2-hour thing after school.
Right on.
Yeah.
So who else? Who's felt something from coming here? Any sense of purpose? Any new friends that you met that you didn't have before, or
new friends? Yes, new friends, and a feeling of comfort as opposed to the several weeks I was wondering, what in the world am I going to do with myself? I don't feel good about not being at church after our last were closed. It's a place to be, and meeting new people.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, since I've been coming here, being able to connect, literally connect with other people that have gifts, and being able to ask. I had an opportunity during the time that you spent 6 hours at Kathleen's house to connect and to ask you questions that I say to myself, is this the way it's supposed to go? Is this right? And that doubt. It's like somebody took a hot knife and put it like butter. It cut through a frozen stick of butter. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's melting away. And the God box. I love the God box. It isn't like, okay, give me money. Come on, give me money. No, it's we take this money, this so much goes in that box, and we help people. Not he, an organization. We, them, everybody here is one. We are all one. We're all connected. We are connected, making more connections. That's a good thing.
That is.
Yeah.
That's been really a real blessing.
So today's message is on connection. In the past, we've talked about all kind of things, from co-creation to negotiation to the truth to all this stuff, which is kind of leading up to today, which is connection. Now, when you look on the back here, it's like God in the middle and the four paths leading to it. Well, there's 3 lights. Like, if you have a hard time getting to God, you can follow the light, and the light will lead you to God. And if you can't get to the lights, then you can go to the pillars, and the pillars will get you to the lights. And so each one of these things is kind of a, if I can't get there, here's a tool to get me from here to here, so I can get from here to here. Now, the 3 lights that I feel lead us real close to God and to life mastery, well, you can barely read it on there, are faith, love, and connection. And so the reason that we're called connections is because of how important having a connection is. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is what is connections? What is a connection, and how does that do what it needs to do? Now, like I said, we're not traditional dogmatic folks. We have to talk from this perspective or this perspective or this perspective, so we can just go with what works. Now, taking a look, we all know that we have a skeleton, right? Right? You with me? Okay. So there are 206 bones in the human body. Okay? A little piece of trivia for you. Now, What is the difference between having it and being connected to it? If I chop my arm, and I put my arm on that table, and I still own it, nobody else owns claim to that arm, that's mine. But if I'm not connected to it, how much good does it do me? To say I have it, I have an arm, it's right there, it's on the table. Okay, well you have an arm, yeah, I've got this one, and I've got that one. Okay, well how different is that from faith? I have faith, I keep it right on the table, right over there. Well, how much good does it do you? Connecting with it, being able to utilize it in your life, that's what makes the difference. Now, I've shared in the past that as a bunch of spiritual beings getting together around a little coffee table in the sky, looking at what we were going to do to create, manifest reality, this humanity thing, we looked at how can we keep some of the basic truths to where we can't forget them. And one of the things we've talked about is giving and receiving. We give the same set of lungs. For in and for out, the same set of lungs. Giving and receiving. It's the same set, the same stuff. Now, also we taught ourselves, we reminded ourselves that we had to have connections. We had to be connected in order for it to work. Those bones need to be connected to those bones in order for us to have functionality. Right? And to have it, there are 850 muscles in your body. Pick one you don't want. Just one. There's 850, right? So just pick one. Oh, this one, I don't need that one. Or this one doesn't really need to be connected. Or I still have it, it's just not connected. So this finger just takes a little manual, you know? No, we need all of them to work. We need all of them to be connected. There are over 100 billion nerves in your body. 100 billion. Show of hands, who's ever had a pinched nerve anywhere? Okay, so you know how debilitating a pinched nerve can be. You have 100 billion nerves in your body. Pick one you don't need. One that doesn't need to be connected. We know what one pinched nerve feels like and how that dramatically affects our entire world, our work, our relationships, our activity, our everything. We have 100 billion opportunities for that. Or for them to be connected. And because they're connected, we get to feel, touch, enjoy this human experience. Because of 100 billion. Now, we're fairly complex folks, whether you knew it or not. There are over 50 to 100 trillion cells in the average body. 50 to 100 trillion cells in your body. What if they decided to not play well together? What if this cell decided it didn't want to be there? And this cell took off, and this cell went over here. The only way we can have a human incarnation in existence is if all 50 to 100 billion little pieces of us say, let's be connected, let's work together. Wow. Now, we designed this, God designed this, as spiritual beings, we designed this to remind ourselves, one, of the amazing creative power that God has, and by being God's kids, that we have. 50 to 100 trillion need to work together. I think that might just remind us that we need to be connected.
Yep.
Right? Now, let's take it a step further. There are over 1,000 trillion synaptic connections in the brain.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know these numbers. I had to go to Wikipedia and start typing stuff in, and WebMD.com, and looking at the most current research that's available on the internet today to get these numbers. And what it said is 100 trillion synaptic connections in the brain. What are we capable of? Anything.
Yeah.
If this one doesn't connect with this one, what happens? I don't know, but I don't want to find out. I want them all to connect. I want to work with more and more and more connections in my head, in my heart, in my cells, in my being, as I remind myself that I am connections. Now, we are connections and we are connected, right? Now, I want to put some of these numbers in a perspective for just a second, right? What's the difference between a million and a billion?
Zeros.
A zero. What's the difference between a billion and a trillion? A zero.
Zeros.
Right? So we just add a zero, and that's what it means.
3.
Well, from million to billion to trillion, right? So you got a couple of zeros added. Let's look this in actual perspective though, 1 million seconds is 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. 1 trillion seconds is 31,688 years. That is not just a zero, folks, or a couple zeros. We start talking about 100 or 1,000 trillion synaptic pathways in the brain. 100 or 1,000 trillion neurons up there. We start talking about this, and you add a few zeros to that.
Wow.
That's what's inside you. You are created with that much precision. Every one of those parts needs to work together. How many folks here either do or have worked at the Cape at some point? Okay, a couple. Now, the shuttle has about how many parts? About 30,000 parts, roughly?
Yeah. Well,
What's that?
it has alone on it 25,000 times. So
Okay,
it's got some parts.
right on. Now, all of those parts need to work together, and if one part doesn't, we got a big oops,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is nothing in comparison to the complexity that you have going on.
Oh,
If every one of your cells in your body was a second, it would take that long to count. And that's just for 1 trillion, not 1,000 trillion just in your mind. You are literally capable of anything. And again, it's the connections that make us. And we're not just physical beings, we're also energetic beings, we're also spiritual beings. We have our 7 chakras, our 7 energy centers throughout our body. They're responsible for powering the physical body, and also it's where science says the 7 main ganglia of nerves or energy centers are located in the body, 5 in the spine, 2 in the mind, the same place that the ancients have seen it for years and years and years and years and years. But this is another expression of who you are. But we're not contained within that body. Your energy exudes out past your physical form. And we call this an aura. There are parts of yourself that are just emanating out all the time, connecting with everything else. Quantum physics tells us it cannot be any different without changing the math from what it is. You have energy meridians running throughout your body. Chinese acupuncture and acupressure utilizes these things to unblock chi and to provide health for the body. You have energy highways running all up and inside you and outside you. We have an ability to connect with our environment in a way that no other creature on Earth can, as the unique expression that we are, because of the free will that we're granted and our ability to process a certain amount of knowledge. But as we meditate and we feel these little roots going out into the earth, and as the earth exhales, bring out through all of our chakras, almost like a tree branching out to heaven, we can conduct all of that earth energy to go out into heaven. And just as heaven exhales, we can have that come all the way down and back in to nourish the earth. We have the ability to connect heaven and earth by being the little walking antennas that we are. That's connection. We have the ability to connect with our planet, to plug into it, to become part of it, to feel it, to feel its heartbeat. How many people have been in the ocean? Right? The feeling of that, feeling the heartbeat of the ocean just by being next to, not even inside, but especially when you're inside, feeling that rhythmic heartbeat of the ocean, of the planet. And we don't need to be in an ocean to do it. We just have to quiet the mind for just a second. We watch and we observe the connection with our planet, with our galaxy. We don't see a string going from our sun to our Earth. But without that gravitational string, we'd just be spinning out there somewhere. We know that it exists. It is our truth that the two are connected even though we can't see it. Well, guess what? In those cells of the body, you don't necessarily see them connected either, but they are. We can feel it. They're not just scattering off. But we get to be a part of all of it, and as we connect with each other, we have the ability to connect, to really, truly connect. What does that mean? It means to get invested in someone else's life. I care more about you at this point than I do me. My stuff's on hold. Who are you? I want to get to know you. I don't say that so I can just talk about myself. I actually want to get to know you. Now, what's going on in your life? Is there any part of your life that I can help with to make your life better because I came into it? Understanding that human nature is that she will not